guys want the Heat to lose?
Yes.
This was a giant stinker. He's your best player. 6 for 19 in that game, Stugotz, against the team we've just empirically shown you is profoundly mediocre. When playoff Jimmy is what it is that we were expecting, he bought himself carte blanche on criticism. I don't think they're wildly inconsistent around him. I think they're wildly consistent about being at shooting.
According to all the numbers going into ESPN's advanced formula, they have a greater chance of finishing top 4 in the NBA draft lottery than they do of actually beating Milwaukee.
I like that.
That they don't have any chance in hell. Tony's in here with his Heat hat, but he's also wearing his Heat hat, and he's yelling at everyone who will listen. Hey, just lose tonight, dump the season, and get the better ping pong ball.
Absolutely. It's the smartest thing to do. You're going to go up against a Buzzsaw Bucks team who's been just one of the best teams all season, and then do what? Just lose in 5 games and then get a worse pick? Like what are we doing here?
You guys are the most passionate homers when it comes to the Miami Heat. You're not doing a bit. You genuinely think that this is a series that's in for the long haul?
Where are you guys on Duncan Robinson?
I'm in the same spot I've been in for the last couple of years, Pablo. Out on him.
They're good enough to get your hopes up and bad enough to destroy them all at once.
That's why I wanted the lottery.
But like the lottery had to
Thank you, Mike.
They already beat a 1 seed in game 1, and we're still talking about the lottery. That's
all
wild.
likelihood, that's a 1 in a 5-game series, man. They're not good.
And you lose Tyler.
In the series so far, it's basically been very simple. The team making a ton of threes is the one that wins the game. I don't expect the Heat to keep shooting this way.
But I can watch other teams play playoff basketball. I can have a team that could have a possibility to win a ping pong ball to a guy who's one of the most historic prospects we've ever seen. Let the Heat. I'd rather have that than lose in 5.
Imagine my surprise when I emerged from the cloud cover to see that after Bam had fouled out, Kevin Love had fouled out, Lowry had fouled out, that Giannis was losing in overtime with Grayson Allen taking the last shot after the buzzer, and the team that Jimmy had around him was Strus, Zeller, Caleb Martin, and Gabe Vincent.
They did switch out Zeller at the very end for Haywood Highsmith. Just wanted to correct you.
I am now genuinely concerned because the entire office, I'm not just talking about the people in here. I have had Cynthia and a number of people out there say Samson has stormed off for good about how he's been treated for the last couple of days. So I'm just going to read some more from what it is that I was getting inundated with while I was gone. Please, I'm begging you, no more all-day Samson. I'm done with Samson playing a major role. I've tried, and his BS never ends. I've been a fan for years, but having Samson on has ruined all this for me. He's everything wrong with America personified. Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at LeBatard Show. Is David Samson everything wrong with America personified? In addition to many other reasons, David Samson is ear cancer.
Wow.
His incessant dismissal of any idea that isn't the exact same as his own is incredibly off-putting. Please stop putting him on the main podcast, at least. The fact that Le Batard had David Samson steward the local hour the morning after one of the best days in Miami sports history, when the local hour is supposed to be for the locals and a preservation of the old show, is just a totally strange business choice. I guess I'm not a real Le Batard fan because there's no bleeping way I'm sitting through a week of David bleeping Samson. Is this some sort of sick experiment to see how many days you can have this rat fink on the show and still have people listen? So you all are going to just drown us with Samson? What happened? What happened when I was gone? Like, I want to know. I didn't hear the local hour yesterday. So explain to me, what did Samson and Stugotz do as Knicks fans that spoiled the expectation that people had after what happened with the Bruins and with the Bucks was for a truly fire, epic, historic local hour from our show. Can you tell me what happened, please? I wasn't here, and I did not hear it. All I've gotten, I haven't read, I'm not kidding you, I haven't read half of it. Like, I could keep going through pages and pages of this stuff.
Please don't. Think we covered the decision, LeBron's decision, which happened like 11 years ago or 12 years ago from David's perspective and how it was the worst day of his life. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was not what you'd expect out of a local hour on the heels of what that poster described as one of the best days in South Florida sports history.
David then went on to explain why I believe he said Miami fans were fair weather fans as opposed to New York fans, which is, something coming from someone who had an interesting influence on the way we perceive Miami's fan base.
Yeah, he doesn't like how much we talk about Jimmy Butler, even though I thought we were trying to be judicious with it.
I don't think we've been judicious with it.
I mean,
but
when
I also,
you ever see anything like that?
Well, I don't also think that you have to be judicious about it. You're watching some things here that don't have a lot of recorded history. Not just him. What Steph Curry did was, I don't even know where to put him in context for the rest of the sport. I know Stephen A. Smith said, do we have to make him the best point guard ever? But given
I thought James Harden had a better game last night.
Well, but to be a 6'2", 180-pound person totally revolutionizing that sport is insane. And I don't know why you would want to diminish what Steph Curry did in a Game 7.
It was a weird take. It was one of the it's the greatest Game 7 ever.
And
you're like, James Harden Game 1 better.
I called it that. I just wanted the on-ramp to discuss what I thought was an unbelievable performance from James Harden. They were both great. I agree. Best Game 7 performance I've ever seen from Steph Curry. I thought James Harden.
But you don't have to add that caveat of Steph Curry. It's like ever. Like any person ever picked up an NBA basketball.
Okay, please stop stopping me. I'm agreeing with you. We're on the same side. That's the best Game 7, period. Yeah, and it's the best Game 7 I've seen from any individual player ever. Yeah, no, we agree. We're there. We're simpatico. But James Harden last night, I thought was even better.
You can make an argument that 45 out of Harden, sans Embiid, was better for his team and more needed for his team than what Steph Curry did.
Okay, why would we do that? And it would have ended Steph Curry's season if he hadn't been that good, because it wasn't like anybody around him was any good in that game.
Yesterday was Steph Curry's day, and today deserves to be James Harden's day because we all thought James Harden was cooked. And without Joel Embiid, nobody gave them a shot in Game 1, even though Boston's been weirdly bad when teams' best players are out this year. It was incredible. Doc Rivers totally outcoached his opposition. They showed James Harden drop pick and roll coverage almost every timeout, and James Harden proceeded to put on a display that honestly should ring eternal because he went at Al Horford on the pick and roll all game long to the tune of 1.75 points per possession.
Put it on the poll, please, at LeBatard Show. Are you going to have a hard time explaining to your grandchildren that Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden were on the same team and never won anything? I don't know, Mike, and I know, like I said on Max Kellerman's show, a lot of people thought that was me on the show because it's Nick Friedel and he's gained weight. And so a lot of people thought I was on with Max Kellerman laughing at the idea that James Harden could carry the Sixers. And the Celtics were like a 10-point favorite in that game because evidently people are sleeping on a former MVP who can get his shot against anybody. But put this on the poll as well, Juju, at LeBatard Show. Was James Harden dressed for the Met Gala yesterday? What was he wearing? What was that? How would you describe it to the audience who has not seen it? It was blue and furry. It was Cookie Monster type of outfit. It was big enough that you wouldn't have been surprised if he had taken it off and Joel Embiid had been under him, under his legs, and they had just been one person wearing a giant outfit.
It did look like Cookie Monster cosplay. The bottom half were bell-bottomy kind of Jenko jeans, a little bit, if you remember that goth fashion trend. The upper half looked like, if you've seen the Dana Carvey vehicle Master of Disguise when he was dressed as a turtle.
Put it on the poll. Put it on the poll, Juju. Have you seen the Dana Carvey vehicle Master of Disguise?
It did look like he had a half shell. in the back. It was a perplexing fashion choice. Tony, you're our fashion expert. Defend the fashion.
Big jeans are in. Big pants are in. Now, that big, I don't know about that. Like, those were a fashion stretch. Big jeans are in, though.
Can we talk about the Met Gala? It seems a lot of people were talking about the Met Gala. I don't know what your favorite moments were yesterday from the Met Gala. You guys...
It was Jared Leto. And
dressed as a cat?
Dressed as Karl Lagerfeld's cat, specifically. Karl Lagerfeld was the theme of this year's Met Gala, and Doja Cat did her makeup, like special effects makeup, to appear as if she were a humanoid cat. And Jared Leto went all the way with it and just dressed up as a full cat. A great costume.
It was great. Yeah.
Can you get me the Doja Cat sound of her interview where she was full Daniel Day-Lewis in character as the cat?
Wait, so who made it? Wow. Okay, so something a little different. So what was your inspiration for tonight? Be honest with me and go into detail. So what are you excited to see in there today? Is it your first Met?
That was me Sunday night listening to Boston Sports Radio. I love this theme. And the Jared Leto costume, it was a great reveal. It was kind of like the Masked Singer a little bit because there was an air of mystery.
Well, he was carried in, was he not?
Yeah, there was mystery as who's in the cat costume. And it was, Billy, I know you love Masked Singer. There were elements of that with the mystery around Jared Leto.
This event seems exhausting.
This event sucks.
It's
the
terrible.
Worst event.
It
Terrible.
seems a bit exhausting.
Ridiculous.
Eat the rich. Well, there's like a whole like parade, obviously, of these ridiculous costumes, right? But then like once they get in, what happens? Because a lot of these costumes you can't even sit in. So like, do they just change their clothes as soon as they get in, and then they just sit and they're like, so what are you doing today? They're like, I don't know, this was it.
I think I saw photos of Jared Leto from inside the gala, and he had switched, and he was just carrying around the cat head.
How does this work? Because like you obviously can't get out of a car in that cat costume. So it's like, is there a staging area where they put on these outfits? Because like Janelle Monáe arrived in this outfit that like had layers that were then removed, and there was like a giant one of those like, I don't even know what it's called, that would go under like the dresses in like the 1920s to make them big. Like, so where do you like? There has to be a dressing area, right?
I think there's a staging area. I've never been to the Met Gala, but there has to be.
I want to see Leto's in the cat costume driving a car. That's a picture I would see. But the Met Gala, to be honest with you, the Met Gala is a microcosm for why so much of the rest of the world hates America. You know, it's just us being so ridiculous and so over the top. For what end? I know it's a charitable thing. That's great. But
you dismissed that portion of it, and
no,
it gets
no one's there for charity. Let's be honest, okay? Maybe charity benefits.
Not.
There's not a person that was there last night that said, you know what? I'm just doing this for charity. I don't want the attention.
Right.
It gets a ton of attention, though, whether you're hated or not. There are very few events anywhere in Americana anymore that are like this one. The whole point of it is to make a fool of yourself so that people talk about you and what you're wearing and your fashion choices. It's why it exists. It's a great thing for charity.
Well, it doesn't help. What's the charity?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh. I don't either. I just assumed it was for charity.
How much is given to the charity? Do we know that?
Did you have any other thoughts, Greg?
I was invited to the Met Gala.
This is the new and unimproved Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz. Gamble on by DraftKings.
If you have some funds and care about the animals, I am here to tell you, as I always do, that Ron Magill, who has done this, one of the most popular segments we've ever done for many years now, for free, he has an endowment, and there is no bureaucracy. Ron Magill takes care of the money, takes care of the animals. If you want to help Ron Magill and the animals, the cleanest way to do it is just look up his endowment online. Many of you have given over the years more than $1 million because our listeners, this is the charity that we contribute to, and our listeners always do this very well and very strongly. We always learn something every week talking to Ron Magill. PETA Ron has called on Georgia football for the second time to retire its live mascot, the Bulldog. I think the dog, Uga, excuse me, that is a fine.
Yeah, you got to know that.
I think
you had a Heisman vote,
a
damn it.
bulldog. You imagine that being scared by 100,000 people?
Listen, Dan, I'm going to be honest with you. I think any domestic dog with the proper time and patience can be pretty much desensitized to almost anything. I wouldn't be concerned so much about the noise as I would about the heat, depending on the elements that the dog is kept in. Bulldogs can get, pretty heavy. They have already a lot of challenges anatomically just with their breathing, just because of the structure of their skull. So subjecting a dog like that to any kind of extreme heat temperature extremes, that is more my concern than actually the noise. I think, again, it can be stressful, but dogs can be desensitized to certain noises.
I have a friend that has a very strong take on bulldogs, and he's angry at the human race for breeding them that way because they are born with breathing problems, and that he believes strongly that we should cease breeding bulldogs because it's cruel. Their very existence is cruel. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, it's not the only breed. I mean, the most popular breed in the world now, the little Frenchie's, another dog that, has been bred for a certain look, but that look certainly isn't conducive to good breathing, good, healthy, environment. A lot of these dogs are bred for looks to satisfy human, appetites, and that shouldn't be. So I tend to lean towards that agreement. As much as I've loved great bulldogs, they can make incredible animals. But should we be breeding animals for our enjoyment as opposed to their good health? That happened just with German Shepherds, just the inbreeding of German Shepherds, the hip problems that we have with these dogs, and several other species. So a lot of this breeding has been kind of like this niche breeding to create a dog that we imagine in our heads, but it's not necessarily the most healthy animal.
Ron, a couple weeks ago, you brought a snake to the studio, and you had it kind of like in this pouch thing, right? And
the pillowcase.
Yeah, I was wondering, can snakes and other animals feel thread count?
God, you are precious, Billy. You are precious. I would assume that they can feel thread count. Now, whether it makes a difference to them or not, I don't know. But the senses of animals tend to be much more finely tuned than our own. And therefore, I think that a snake would certainly feel the difference in texture and softness and thread count in its pillowcase that it's residing in at the moment.
Ron, a zebra to me, because of its appearance, has a fanciful quality, almost like a unicorn. But then I read that a zebra almost tore a guy's arm off on an Ohio farm. Can you tell me, A, what is the personality and demeanor of a zebra? And B, is there any other animal that visually looks as distinctive?
First of all, the zebra is a very highly strung animal. There are several species of zebras. There's the common zebra, the Burchell's or plain zebra. There's the Grevy zebra, which is the largest species. They tend to have a little bit different behaviors. The plain zebra is a large herd zebra. They're very high strung, very difficult to quote unquote tame down. The Grevy zebra tends to be a larger animal, not found in large herds, sometimes can be solitary, found in smaller groups, tends to be a little calmer in its demeanor. But generally speaking, zebras are very high-strung animals. You occasionally will see one in a circus, God forbid, but it is incredibly rare, and any horse person will tell you that's ever tried to work with zebras or tame zebras down, it's almost impossible. This is just a instinctively very highly strung, very nervous animal. Now, as far as a distinct look, oh yeah, there's several of them. Look at the okapi. People think the okapi is like a forest zebra because it's got that classical stripes on its rump, but it's got a longer neck, and it's actually the only living relative of the giraffe. That animal is a big animal, wasn't even discovered until the early 1900s in the Congo, which was then called Zaire at the time. But this is a really unique animal. It looks like a Dr. Seuss animal, like it was put together with different parts, but incredibly distinctive.
Ron, you mentioned the zebra, and I saw a couple weeks ago, it was going around on social media, and I guess the picture's from a story that came out a couple years ago. It's a rare polka-dotted zebra foal that was the photograph was taken in Kenya, and it says that it's more susceptible to biting flies. How uncommon are these, and why is it that flies would bite spotted zebras as opposed to striped zebras?
That's a great question, Billy. First of all, that's not what they call a spotted zebra. That was what we call a melanistic zebra. The melanin in the animal, the dark colored pigment, is overrepresented, becomes oversaturated. So the white is kind of blurred out. So it appeared you only saw white spots, but it's not really white spot. It's just that over amount of melanin. It's like a jaguar. You've heard about the black panther. That's usually a black jaguar or black leopard that has an overabundance of melanin where it looks black, but if the sun hits it, you'll still see those roseate spots kind of shining through that blackness. The reason why the insects bite it now is because it's been proven through testing that the striped pattern of the zebra is a kind of a natural deflector to the tsetse fly. And the tsetse fly, of course, can spread all kinds of disease that can be fatal to people and to some animals. So the biting is also very, of course, annoying just to the zebras. And when it loses that striped pattern that tends to kind of, I don't want to say it's confusing the fly. I don't know. I don't have the brain of a fly, even though some people would beg to differ with me. The bottom line is it has been proven that that striped pattern is something that pretty much, deflects these flies from coming in. And when you lose those stripes, that's why when you go out into the wild, if you go out at night, never wear black clothing or dark clothing. You'll get bitten left and right. You always try to wear light clothing. You don't see the rangers, the African park rangers wearing dark clothing, right? They're always in khakis or light colors because it helps. Flies don't like to land on that because they stand out against the white background and they get eaten by something else.
Wait, so if I go out like on a regular day in South Florida and I'm dressed in zebra print, I will be less likely to get bit by flies and mosquitoes?
By flies, I don't know about mosquitoes, but certainly by at least the tsetse fly. That's the studies that have been done with the tsetse fly, which is the dangerous fly that's found throughout the African continent.
Ron, I know you're anti-wild animals for pets and like exotic animals for pets, but I saw a fox the other day and I was like, you know what? I'd like that. Kind of roaming around the house, hanging out, popping his head up, and I'm like, oh, there you are.
Tony.
Is that a bad idea, Ron?
That's a bad idea.
No.
Tony.
Come on.
Tony, you know what? Get yourself a little stuffed animal from Toys R Us or something and put it there. It looks kind of cool the same way. These animals, this is the biggest problem that we have with these exotic animals. That's a problem I have a lot of times. If I go and make an appearance with an animal and I'm holding the animal, people look at it and I may be saying over and over, listen, these do not make good pets. Do not have this as a pet. And people are absolutely deaf to what I'm saying. They're just looking at me holding this animal going, I want to do that. And that's a conflict that I have in my mind all the time. And I really try to stop doing that as much as I used to because I don't want to give the wrong message. These do not make good. Look at my hands. If you look at the scars on my hands from all the bites and stuff that I've had, it's from animals that don't make good pets. That I've decided to handle for an educational presentation or something and didn't work out well for me. And it's not going to work out well for you. And it usually works out worse for the animal. So they don't make good pets. There's an old saying, you can take an animal out of the wild. You can't take the wild out of the animal. Please don't do that, Tony. Stick to basketball that you're very good at.
Ron, what is the worst presentation experience you've had where you have been bitten by one of the animals?
It was actually a pelican. A flipping pelican almost took out my eye live on Sábado Gigante. I was holding this pelican and he just all of a sudden just grabbed the side of my face and almost pulled out my eye. That was not a very good experience. I haven't been, thank goodness, knock on wood, I've never been severely hurt by an animal. And another very embarrassing situation, I was holding a Malayan water monitor. I was doing a live segment on Channel 6 with a weathercaster, a dear friend named Maria Gennaro back then, one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen in my life. And I'm sitting there thinking, here I am with Maria Gennaro holding this Malayan, and all of a sudden, live TV, it did the most incredible fecal movement you could ever imagine. It was an explosion of feces that went all over me. The stink made your eyes water. It gave you that immediate gag reflex where you kind of like that. And she's just cracking up. And
you threw up on Maria, didn't you?
I threw up in my mouth. I'll tell you that a little bit. I had to hold it in. It was so disgusting. I can't even explain to you in words how offensive the smell was. Not to mention, it's not like it comes out like, a normal fecal movement, like a log. It comes out like an explosion, like a water balloon of diarrhea blew up on you.
You mentioned anxious animals, the zebra. What would you say is the most anxious animal?
Damn, Dan, you hit me with the question. There's so many very nervous animals. I think some of the very smaller primates, a lot of the little marmosets, the tamarins, these are incredibly high-strung, nervous animals that are very, very difficult to habituate, to calm down.
Ron, Dillard's is the last major U.S. department store to still sell animal fur.
Dillard's.
Dillard's.
Put it on the poll,
Really?
Juju.
I didn't even
please.
know that.
At Le Batard Show. Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Were you aware that there was still an active Dillard's anywhere in the United States?
That's
I am
correct.
stunned by that revelation.
And they're the only ones still selling animal fur. So I'm wondering, Ron, you're in an elevator with the president of Dillard's. What are you saying to him or her?
I'd encourage him or her to rethink that, that strategy, because I think that appeal a lot more shoppers than, and avoid a lot of controversy, because, the upswell of people against that type of, of selling of products is growing, and it's going to continue to grow. I think, especially this young generation, they're not going to tolerate that type of exploitation of animals and animal parts.
Ron, thank you, sir. We will talk to you next week.
All right, guys, be safe. Take care.
Since you decided to ride with Samson and ruin your main show, I'm out, done, unsubscribed, happily wagering on FanDuel, drinking Bud Lights. So very sad, so very predictable, so incredibly dumb in the face of intelligence. At least Barstool knows not to put irritating know-nothings on a mic for more than 60 seconds in a row. Congrats on being worse than Barstool. Enjoy Giraffe Kings Network.
So 3 competitors there. We thought that was a good idea to read.
Too much, Samson. Just lock him in a podcast somewhere. I'm skipping it now. It's okay to skip when they have someone actively hurting the show. They can't even give us a break from him. Having him host for this many days in a row is intolerable. I really can't get behind Samson as a co-host. I think for the first time, I might have to start skipping episodes fully. I don't know where he is. He has left. He has been in the employ of Meadowlark for, is it less than a month?
If only we warned you.
And now he is bothered, allegedly bothered, where the entire room is thinking that he's not coming back.
My favorite was the listener who referred to Samson as a rat fink. I hadn't heard that expression. I think that's from Mad Magazine. I think Alfred E. Newman coined the phrase rat fink back in the 60s. And to have that applied to David Samson, I think is just splendid. It's just wonderful.
What's worse, a rat fink or a rat bastard?
Put it on the poll, please, Juju at LeBatard Show. What is worse? I think he was called both, a rat fink and a rat bastard. And has anyone, put this on the poll as well, has anyone since the Depression era of Prohibition used the term rat fink?
Yes. Rat fink outdoes rat bastard. Rat fink is the OG, and everything else is just an imitator.
Mike Ryan, we have some sound of Jeff Teague going on a podcast who we will credit after we have played this sound. But Jeff Teague is here giving us more details on one of the most famous practice scrimmages in the history of basketball. You'll recall, and a lot of people are saying this about Jimmy Butler today, that he's one of the few players in the NBA that's sort of cut from the Kobe cloth, an old school crazy person, basically, about competition, where Spo says he's desperate, he's urgent, maniacal, sometimes psychotic. That is what his own coach refers to Jimmy Butler as. And a lot of people, and man, I can't remember a single player doing this to smear a franchise this way. Not even Kawhi Leonard smeared a franchise this way when he just sat out on the Spurs and people started questioning their doctors. Jimmy Butler basically put a stain on Andrew Wiggins that he's only been able to get off him by joining the Dynastic Warriors, and Karl Anthony Towns still hasn't gotten it off him because there's this perception that Jimmy Butler cares in a way that's charming and unreasonable, in a way that Karl Anthony Towns, who you look at and you're like, that guy has gifts that Jimmy Butler does not have, has physical gifts that are indisputable. And here's Jeff Teague talking about the Timberwolves practice where Jimmy Butler made sure that he wasn't going to play anymore for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Jimmy started talking to the GM, everybody in the gym. Y'all better mother effing pay me. I'm like that. I'm like, he is nuts. I'm laughing, not realizing what's coming with this. I'm laughing. Me and D Rose laughing. We in the game. We keep throwing the cat. Cat finally scored. He too little. I'm like, yeah, Cat, talk to that motherfucker, man. He ain't nothing. Da. Boy, they go on this 10-0 run. They dunking, hitting threes. Jimmy ain't scored at all. He just stealing the ball and passing to people, getting assists, just playing the right way. But he like doing everything. Yeah. Time run out. They win. They beat us like 18-6, right? Man, Jimmy going crazy. Y'all think that team can win without me? I'm him. Pay me. Pay me. Mind you, he ain't took off his Jordan warm-up yet, right? He finally takes it off. He got the Timberwolves shirt on, but he cut the Minnesota out so it's just chest. Wow. He cut the Minnesota out the shorts. It's just shorts. He out here with a hole in the middle of his shirt, on the middle of his leg. So I'm crying now. Yo, I'm crying. I'm like, yo, bro, crazy. But I ain't realized like he just beat us with the D-League team, G-League team. So I'm like, I just beat them with the G-Leaguers. This is your starters? So now I'm laughing. I'm still crying, laughing, but I'm like, hold on, he talking about me. Yeah, nigga.
He's one of the starters. That's from Club 520. Enjoy it now, Miami, because whenever it is that begins to age, my guess is he's not going to look in a mirror and say, you know what, I will go quietly, however it is that goes. But while it's here, you're watching him carry what is the worst remaining playoff team. Like, it's them or the Knicks. From even with as thin as the Suns bench is, you look around at what's left, and I'm assuming that everyone playing in all the other series are dying to play whatever comes out of Miami, New York Knicks. I'm gathering, that you fear everyone else more. I'm disappointed that I have to get LeBron and Steph this early. I'm glad that I get it, but I'd like it for bigger stakes. I'd like it for historic stakes, because when you guys were talking before about what Steph did in Game 7, I think the most impressive thing about it is he's 35 years old. There's supposed to be some sort of drop-off. I know that we're used to. This is not the prime of athlete anymore.
We never talk about Steph as a guy that's older or aging, and I think that's in part because of his physical appearance and also the game that he plays. It probably discounts his athleticism far too much that it's never really discussed when it comes to him. But people just assume that style of play will age gracefully. That nobody would bat an eye if I told you Steph Curry plays for 5 more years.
It's when you can shoot, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to go in and try to be D Rose or D Wade where everything is to the rim, everything's falling down, your knees don't do what they used to, your ankles aren't the same. And remember, his career was almost derailed with those ankle problems. So for him to be able to overcome that and become the greatest shooter of all time is going to almost like prolong his career on the back end.
I don't want to take a traditional sports topic and take it off into fantasy land as we're just trying to appreciate the here and now. But I honestly think Steph Curry could play well into his 50s and be a key contributor just because he's such a great shooter. You have to account for his shooting at all times. Hell, let's push it out even more ridiculously.
Oh, come on.
I could have a
Come on.
60-year-old
Come
Steph
on.
Curry out there.
He's going to be a defensive
He'd be
liability.
a defensive liability, but that's all right.
Hide him in the corner.
I would hide him in the corner, and you have to account for the man.
An honest question. Why is it still always Michael or LeBron? Does Steph Curry deserve to be in the conversation about ultimate GOAT?
Put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show, Juju. Can Steph Curry play into his 60s? Tony mentioned something that I think does bear repeating. Steph Curry's contract was a risky one because of the cadaver put in his ankle and because of how much there was in questioning what was happening with his ankles. As Chris Paul gets injured again, and man, that Phoenix bench is thin. They're top 4 guys. You take them against anybody. They're top 4 guys. But after that, it's awfully thin there. And Chris Paul not only got hurt, but Joel Embiid's services are often in question. Steph has not only played, he plays a lot. He doesn't miss very many.
He misses the regular season, and to be fair, Dan, it did nuke one of their seasons in which they went into tank mode because he hurt his hand. He had a lengthy injury problem this season. He's healthy in time for the playoffs. He's not been the healthiest player, but he's been available in the postseason.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, who cares about the regular season? You've got 6 and a 7 playing, and we are all of us. The Lakers have the best record in the league since trading Westbrook. They started 2-10. They're only the second team ever to make the playoffs and win a playoff series, starting 2-10. You say, yeah, he's been hurt during the regular season. Some of this stuff can be random, but Embiid has now, Embiid has put a couple of postseasons in peril.
Yeah, second consecutive year he's been injured during the second round, a round that has been impossible in recent history for the Sixers to get past. You mentioned that you're upset that Steph versus LeBron isn't for greater stakes. I'll take it when I can get it. Considering the 2-10 start from the Lakers, it didn't seem like the Lakers would be in this position. The fact that we're getting it in the second round is amazing. Look at these second round matchups. Kevin Durant, we mentioned it yesterday, Kevin Durant against possibly the 3-time consecutive MVP is the weakest series. It's a ratings bonanza for Adam Silver as a media deal is coming up. It's incredible, these matchups.
And the other thing, too, with Steph Curry is you don't have to look too far into his own backcourt where Klay Thompson has had injury after injury after injury after injury, and he's just kind of skated by with minor things, but nothing like an Achilles, nothing like an ACL tear, nothing like that, where in those games that could happen in an instant.
Who was talking before the show about feeling bad for Chris Paul?
That was me. I feel bad because you go back to him being on the Rockets, him being on the Clippers, now him on the Suns. They would have won that NBA Finals against the Milwaukee Bucks if he would have stayed healthy. And it's like, man, it's just every year he can't catch a break, and he knows he tries to prepare his body, and these guys are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, every single year on prepping their body, on getting everything right. Acupuncture, sauna, cold plunge, massages, and you do it every single year. Soft tissue injuries. It's insane.
We knew that trade for Durant had its risk because what were they going to do when the inevitable Chris Paul playoff injury would happen? What are they going to do if Kevin Durant gets hurt? He slipped on the floor and was out for a month over there. They've got nothing.
He's 38 years old. He turns 38 this week.
They've got nothing.
Greg Cody likes to be a doctor. Greg Cody is saying Jimmy Butler should not play tonight. He has not analyzed the ankle. Jimmy Butler has been seen walking around New York, but walking around New York and playing in an NBA game, playoff game, are two different things. But you sit him and come home with whatever the consequences tonight are?
Well, the assumption in saying that is that he's not 100% and that there is a chance he's going to re-aggravate that where he would be unavailable or a question in ensuing games. I think when you have a 1-0 lead and you're about to head home for 2 in a row, I think you err on the side of extreme caution with Jimmy Butler, particularly when the Knicks themselves have 2 of their top players
and
questionable
Greg,
to play.
Game 3 isn't for a while. Game 3 is on Saturday.
Right.
You essentially can rest him for a full week.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, no, I think so. And again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what.
This is the new and unimproved Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz. Gamble on by DraftKings.